We're because, like I said, I saw your story. You were in the protest yesterday. Did how how long were you there? And were you there before we still before they started like rioting and stuff?
Yeah, I was there at the very beginning. It began at 3 o'clock, and I stayed until about maybe 4:30. And so I think the rioting didn't begin until after 5.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was quite moving to see so many people come together despite, differences or
Mm-hmm.
despite, what is that called? The pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's a big one. It's
Yeah.
kept people socially distant, so
Mm-hmm.
large gatherings to protest in a way to promote positive change is it surprised me how many people showed up in solidarity and were quite peaceful, at least when I was
Yeah.
there.
First. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's what I want people to take away, that it started as being peaceful protest
yeah.
before chaos erupted. And if you look at numbers, I think it's annual report from like 500 up to even 1,200 people that were there.
Here in Jax?
Altogether, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
I
that's
think I
crazy.
saw numbers that swayed into 3,000.
3,000.
Mhm.
Whoa, I did not see that. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, throughout the whole time.
Oh yeah, I think
people
I think
came and laughed.
got you.
So
Yeah.
what's your take on the on well, obviously, at the beginning you said that it started, it's a peaceful protest.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the rioting, excuse me?
Oh gosh, such a controversial question.
It is.
But it's not my place to tell someone else how they should protest when they're outraged about such an injustice
Mm-hmm.
going on. So, with that being said, what we see in the news reports is what happened, but not what led up to what
Yeah.
happened, what instigated the
Mm-hmm.
situation, outside of obviously being frustrated and hurt and anger, penetrating through everyone's energy about all of these injustice. It's, you know, I wasn't there, so I can't speak to, what instigated that. But I suppose I absolutely feel that material things are not as valuable as someone's life,
Yeah,
for sure.
I can see that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And um, with the media and social media, they're highlighting protests that are converting to riots, because that's what get views. That's what get. But they don't really mention how in Denver there's multiple protests that don't escalate to riots.
Yeah.
They don't really highlight those because that's not what's getting them the views.
Yeah.
Like in Denver, they there's people that lay down.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. They lay
I
down.
did see some
You saw
laying
that?
or sitting.
Sitting.
I've seen both.
Yeah, and North Carolina. Even there's. I'm not sure if you knew, or if you knew in general. J. Cole was also
I saw him. I
protesting.
saw a video.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
No, I
in North
didn't.
Carolina, Jalen Brown, he's a basketball player, an NBA basketball player. This guy has millions, he doesn't, million, he has millions, he's a millionaire. He's out there also in the front lines protesting with people in Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Malcolm Brogdon, I can't say his name, also an NBA player. I think it's dope that these I don't say celebrities, artists are they don't just tweet and say that we gotta do this. They're doing
Taking
it.
action.
They're taking
Yeah.
action,
Yeah.
and that's very awe-inspiring. You see with this whole protest across the country. Sorry, I'm going a little tangent, but
Go.
across the country, you see a lot of for better or for worse, you saw a lot of remarkable things. You saw, I'm not sure if you kept up with it. You see these police officers kneeling as well with the protesters.
I've seen some images.
You see these police officers protesting as well. You see a lot of what's that word I'm looking for? Solidarity.
Solidarity.
So yeah, like where they're coming together.
Yeah.
Police officers and protesters, they're hugging. But you also see some truly horrifying stuff as well.
Yeah.
And I just think with something so complex like that, there's no right way to do it. Well, there's a right way to do it, there's a wrong way to do it, but there's no easy way to do it to get everything, fix things.
I don't think violence is the way to approach this situation, though. You can't fight fire with fire.
Yeah,
it never works.
No,
and especially as you can see now within the videos and the with the riots and stuff like that. It's not going to be beneficial for either party. There's always a better way to do things. You just have to analyze. We can all agree that there's something wrong with the system, right? We can't disagree with that, and we need to work towards it. Violence is simply not the answer, because we've seen what violence does. Violence gets a man killed. We saw it on a video, a 10-minute video of a man wrongfully getting killed, an execution. And that's what violence brings. Yeah. And this is what people need to understand, because there are other people who are being affected by this now, not just Floyd, right? There's business owners. There's people in communities that are being affected by this who did no wrong whatsoever. And, because, there have been riots and this and that, they're being affected, which is, I feel like, is an injustice in itself, because they did absolutely anything. And that's my viewpoint on that. And that's the reason why I wanted to ask you, because a lot of people are supporting these violent, because it's a crime. Let's not look at it any other way. This is what some of these people are doing, a crime, especially if you're looting. That's an excuse. So, I personally feel hurt, because there, a crime. How would I say? Police brutality is very real, right? Not throughout all the cops, because there are cops out there who are putting their life on the line every single day, right? And we kind of have to respect that in a sense. I'm not saying that there are any corrupt cops, but it's just it's an overgeneralization of what the media provides. Kind of like Jesus was talking about. The highlight is the negative, and so that's what gets the views and the money for the media. So I just think we all need to come together properly. And, if we're going to protest, we need to do it civilly. And especially because people are, comparing these riots to, MLK, Martin Luther King. And I think that's a disrespect in itself, because you never saw any of these things happen. You saw the retaliation of, white people back then when there was racism, but, it was always a peaceful protest. And it got to more than they just needed unification of a bunch of people. And they got it accomplished, which back then it was even worse. There's massive inequality. Now we're progressing, but we just needed, we need to find a better alternative to these protests and how we're actually taking an approach to them, because more people are just coming out hurt, right? And it's just not helping anybody. That's my viewpoint on that.
Yeah, it's definitely a complex situation with many perspectives, some of which I can't relate to. I can't empathize because, I may be brown, but I'm not black. Yeah. Right? So I can't speak about black existence and understand how it must feel to not have any justice and to fear for your life every single day in a place where you feel like you shouldn't have to feel that way. And I don't think anyone should. But if you take a look at Martin Luther King and you take a look at Rodney King and what happened in the early 90s back in LA, I think, those riots did happen. And yes, there were, looting and burning and all kinds of, damages sustained in the area. But it was their way of expressing their unrest, because having peaceful protests didn't bring about the positive change. Yeah. So I'm not saying that necessarily violence is the answer, but also the peaceful protest approach isn't working, and it hasn't worked from the very beginning. Unfortunately, otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
No, I agree with you. Without, like you're saying, without condemning or condoning, riots have a place I think riots have a place into evoking change. That's what I think. I could be, like I told him, I was like, if it wasn't for the riots initially, I think that police officer would still not be arrested. I don't think he would have been arrested. Even the DEA said typically when it comes to an officer like murdering someone on line of duty, he even said himself, it typically takes like 9 months for him to get arrested. He got arrested within like, was it like 3 weeks, a month?
Yeah.
So,
which is still a long time considering
correct. You have
the
evidence.
circumstances and having, video, like you said. I actually didn't watch the video because
I can't watch. I watched like.
I just cry.
Yeah, it was hard. I watched like.
No, I couldn't watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
I watched like a minute. I was like,
I couldn't
can't
do it. I did. I couldn't
Yeah.
watch the whole thing. Again, there's no right answer to how to solve this problem, but I think that there is, in a sense, which is unification of everybody. Rioting and you guys definitely may have a point as far as the action that was taken based on the rioting. I'm not disagreeing with that, in any sense of that. I just think that we just need to find better alternatives, just because there's other people who are getting hurt, and they don't deserve it. The rioters, whether it be the rioters or third parties on the other side, which would be like business owners, and some of these business owners are local, part of the community who have worked like countless years
And
to
some are
build.
black.
Right, exactly.
Black too,
So again, I'm not putting race into any of this. I'm just I'm looking at the actions, right? That's all I'm looking at. And I understand. Actually, hold on. I don't understand, because personally I'm not black, right? I can't say that I do understand within that sense. I'm just looking at it, from I guess a third point of view, right? Within my perspective.
I think all of
We all
us in
are.
our room are,
We
this
all
room
are,
are,
yeah.
it's hard to fully understand and try to find a positive solution for the outcome we all hope to have, which is that unity you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a truly tough situation.
Yeah, and as you said, it's peaceful protest is not working. The an NFL, Colin Kaepernick, NFL player,
Yeah.
need, and that was peaceful as peaceful can be. He wasn't hurt. He was literally not doing anything. He wasn't hurting anyone. He just took a knee, and that got him essentially got fired from the NFL. He can't find a team anymore, and people got mad at that.
Yeah.
Like, come on now. Like, I don't understand. What at this point, what else can you do? He can do this peaceful thing, and he consulted with like a military member. He's like, what's the most peaceful? What's like the most non-offensive way I can do protest? What we're talking about right now, which is police brutality towards black people. And he consulted with someone, a military member, and that's what he did. That got him fired from the NFL, and just got him so much hate. So what else can you do? Like I said, I don't think it's the clear-cut way to do things. You just, as long as you get that message out there, that's a good start.
Yeah, I think that there are multiple points in society that have holes that need to be, I would say holes that need to be patched in a sense. So it's not just, the police portion. It's not just the racism. It's a bunch of things that need to be worked on simultaneously. I can't speak.
Simultaneously.
Thank you.
But this is specifically towards police.
Right.
That's what they're doing.
I understand that, but there's also other things that are going around this, which primarily I would say is the media. I think we need to start filtering the content, because there's just so much negative nowadays that comes out from the media that creates this fear that's already existing, and sometimes it can be an overgeneralization, creating a large amount of fear, which fear in itself, it could either help you or it could harm you, right? It could push you forward, or it could set you back, depending on the kind of person that you are. In this case, we seen what happens, right? When the media just overgeneralizes things, and I just think that we needed to look at all points of this nation and start just executing on everything that's wrong, because everything comes full circle, and I'm not saying that we're going to create a utopia here in the United States. I just think that we need to start working in all parts, whether it be the justice system, the media system, all that.
Yeah, jumping off of that, I think first and foremost, race is a social construct,
Oh, yeah,
so
for sure.
That in and of itself is already problematic. And then you have these fundamental flaws in the way things were written. So it's not necessarily that there are holes to be patched up. They were never written to, protect everyone, everyone's rights. Before, what was it? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of land, not happiness. That's how it was originally written. And I think when you start looking away about history and how things really unfolded, I think it's important to kind of understand the way the history unfolded, not just in America, but outside of that, because America itself is also stolen land. Our history is super short compared to a lot of other countries where they've gone through similar things, where their societies overthrew their governments. And I think it's difficult to find a government that is the perfect system.
Right.
We're going to make a lot of mistakes, of course, but I think as a society, if we recognize those problems and we find solutions together to hopefully have the unity that you spoke about, then, I think it's important to do that. And unfortunately, some of that may require violence. As much as I don't want violence, I don't want people to be hurt. Why have more innocent bystanders? I think that's sad. But I do think it happens. I mean, if you look at Egypt when they overthrew their government, and if you look at places like Hong Kong right now, and how the UK gave back Hong Kong to China, and Hong Kong's like, no. A lot of shit is happening around the world. And I think as such a young country, it's not a lot of history to look back on. But the history you have is quite telling to how we got to where we are.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Even
No.
well, it looks like
Analytical.
looks like you're very entrenched in a lot of world history.